I let my wife continue her affair, then made my move. You get me in ways he never did. She texted her lover, not knowing I saw everything. I stayed silent for months. The day she planned to leave me, I hit her with evidence that left her speechless. I discovered my wife's affair 6 months ago, but I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I did something that would change everything. I stayed silent and started collecting evidence. It began on a Tuesday evening when she left her phone on the kitchen counter while showering. A text notification lit up the screen, and I saw enough to make my blood run cold. The message was from someone named Jay in her contacts, and the preview showed words that no husband should ever read about his wife. My hands trembled as I picked up the device. The full message read that she got him in ways I never did, followed by details about their upcoming meeting. My world tilted on its axis, but something inside me stayed remarkably calm. Perhaps it was shock, or maybe survival instinct, but I made a decision that would define the next several months of my life. I took screenshots of everything I could find before she finished her shower. The affair had been going on for 4 months, based on the message history. They met twice a week at his apartment downtown, always when I was supposedly working late or traveling for business. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had been working those extra hours to save money for the vacation she'd been requesting. Over the following weeks, I became a detective in my own marriage. I installed recovery software on our shared computer and discovered she'd been deleting browser history. But digital footprints are harder to erase than most people realize. Hotel bookings, restaurant reservations, even parking receipts from areas of the city she claimed never to visit. Everything painted a clear picture of deception. She had become sloppy with her lies. When she said she was having dinner with her sister, I'd drive by her sister's house and find it dark. When she claimed to be working late, I'd call her office and learn she'd left hours earlier. Each lie added another piece to my growing collection of evidence. The most damaging discovery came 3 weeks into my investigation. I found email drafts she'd never sent, including one to a divorce attorney inquiring about asset division and custody arrangements for our 8-year-old daughter. The consultation was scheduled for the following month. She was planning her exit strategy while still sharing my bed every night. Maintaining normalcy became my greatest acting challenge. I continued our routine conversations about work, our daughter's school activities, and weekend plans, all while knowing she was planning to destroy our family. She would text him during our family dinners, claiming it was work-related, and I would nod understandingly while my stomach churned. The hardest part was watching her lie to our daughter. When our little girl asked why mommy was always on her phone, she would say it was important work stuff. I watched our child accept this explanation with the trusting innocence that made the betrayal even more painful. I started documenting everything with timestamps and locations. Her late nights became predictable patterns. Tuesday and Friday evenings were reserved for him, with elaborate cover stories about book clubs and yoga classes. I verified that no such activities existed at the locations she claimed to attend. My background in IT proved invaluable during this phase. I discovered she'd been using a separate email account to communicate with him, one she accessed only from her personal laptop. Late one night, while she slept beside me, I accessed this account and found months of correspondence that revealed the full scope of their relationship. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning a future together. He was divorced with no children, and she had convinced him that I was emotionally distant and that our marriage had been over for years. Reading her version of our relationship was like looking at a funhouse mirror reflection of our life together. She had rewritten our history to justify her actions. The romantic gestures I thought she appreciated were described as desperate attempts to control her. The family vacations I'd planned became examples of my selfishness. Every positive memory had been twisted into evidence of my inadequacy as a husband. Following the money revealed another layer of betrayal. She had opened a credit card in her name only and was using it to fund their relationship. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, even gifts for him, all charged to an account I knew nothing about. The monthly statements were being sent to her office address. I calculated that she'd spent over $8,000 on this affair in 4 months. Money that should have gone toward our daughter's college fund or our mortgage payments was instead financing her deception. I photographed every statement and receipt I could find. She had also been gradually moving money from our joint savings account to her personal checking account, small amounts that wouldn't trigger immediate notice but significant enough to matter during divorce proceedings. I documented every transfer with dates and amounts. Living with this knowledge while maintaining a facade of normalcy took its toll. I lost 15 pounds in 2 months and developed insomnia that left me exhausted during the day. Colleagues noticed my distraction during meetings, and I had to work harder to maintain my professional performance. The worst moments came when she would return from seeing him and try to be affectionate with me, as if physical intimacy could somehow balance the scales of her betrayal. I learned to make excuses about being tired or stressed, anything to avoid the hypocrisy of her touch. Our daughter began asking if Daddy was okay because I seemed sad all the time. I had to reassure her while dying inside, knowing that her mother's actions would soon turn her world upside down. I started taking more photos and videos of our family moments, sensing that everything was about to change forever. By month 4 of my silent investigation, I had assembled a comprehensive dossier of evidence. Bank statements, hotel receipts, text messages, emails, photographs, and even audio recordings from a voice-activated recorder I'd placed in her car. Everything was organized chronologically and stored in multiple secure locations. I consulted with a divorce attorney without her knowledge, using a firm in the next city to avoid any potential conflicts. The lawyer was impressed with the thoroughness of my documentation and assured me that I had more than enough evidence to secure favorable terms in divorce proceedings, including primary custody of our daughter. The attorney advised me to continue documenting until she made her move, as additional evidence would only strengthen my position. I learned about asset protection and quietly began securing our joint accounts and investments to prevent her from draining them when she decided to leave. 5 months into my investigation, I discovered she had scheduled her meeting with the divorce attorney for the following week. She was planning to file papers immediately afterward, hoping to catch me off guard and unprepared. Her lover had even offered to let her stay at his place during the proceedings. I made my own preparations. I arranged for our daughter to stay with my parents for the weekend, telling them I wanted to plan a surprise for my wife. The irony of that statement wasn't lost on me, but they agreed without question. I prepared multiple copies of all evidence, storing them with my attorney, my brother, and in a safety deposit box she didn't know about. I also prepared a detailed timeline of her affair, complete with dates, locations, and financial expenditures. Her behavior during that final week was almost comical in its transparency. She was nervous and jumpy, constantly checking her phone and making hushed calls from other rooms. She claimed to be stressed about a work project, but I knew she was coordinating the final details of her exit strategy. She even suggested we have a nice dinner together that Friday night, probably planning it as some sort of farewell gesture before destroying our marriage. I agreed, knowing it would be our last meal together as husband and wife, though only I knew it at the time. During that dinner, she actually told me she loved me and appreciated everything I did for our family. The audacity of her words, spoken just days before she planned to leave, crystallized my resolve to follow through with my plan. Update 1. The morning she was scheduled to meet with her divorce attorney, I woke up early and prepared everything. I printed out the most damaging evidence and arranged it in a folder on the kitchen table. Then I waited. She came downstairs dressed professionally, claiming she had an important meeting at work. I told her I knew exactly what meeting she was attending and suggested she sit down before looking at the folder. The color drained from her face as she opened it and saw months of documented evidence staring back at her. Text messages, emails, financial records, hotel receipts, and photographs. Everything laid out in chronological order like a prosecutor's case file. She tried to speak, but I held up my hand and told her I wasn't finished. I explained that I'd known about her affair for 6 months and had been documenting everything while she planned to blindside me with divorce papers. Her shock turned to panic when I revealed that I knew about her consultation with the divorce attorney scheduled for that very morning. I suggested she call and cancel it, as I had already filed papers the previous day with my own attorney. Update 2. The next few hours were a blur of accusations, tears, and desperate attempts at explanation. She claimed the affair meant nothing and that she'd been planning to end it before filing for divorce. She insisted she still loved me and wanted to work things out. I remained calm and methodical, walking her through the evidence piece by piece. When she claimed it was just physical, I read her own words back to her. Messages where she told him she'd never felt this way about anyone and was planning their future together. She broke down completely when I showed her the financial records, realizing that her secret spending had been documented down to the penny. The $8,000 she'd spent on her affair could have paid for our daughter's entire school year, and I made sure she understood that connection. Her lover called during this confrontation, probably wondering why she hadn't shown up at his apartment as planned. I answered her phone and informed him that his affair partner's husband had been documenting their relationship for months and that he should expect to be named in divorce proceedings. Update 3. The divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. My documentation made her position indefensible, and her attorney advised her to accept my terms rather than face a lengthy court battle she couldn't win. I was awarded primary custody of our daughter, the house, and the majority of our assets. She was required to pay child support and reimburse the marital funds she'd spent on her affair. The credit card debt she'd accumulated was assigned entirely to her, as it was incurred without my knowledge for non-marital purposes. Her relationship with her lover didn't survive the exposure. Apparently, he wasn't prepared for the reality of dating a woman going through a contentious divorce, especially one where his role was prominently featured in legal documents. He ended things within a month of my confrontation. Final update. 6 months later, I'm rebuilding my life with my daughter as my priority. She's adjusting well to our new normal, and I've been honest with her about why mommy doesn't live with us anymore, in age-appropriate terms. She knows that sometimes adults make choices that hurt their families, but that daddy will always be there for her. My ex-wife has visitation rights, but our interactions are limited to necessary communications about our daughter. She's moved back in with her parents and is working to rebuild her life and reputation. Several mutual friends have distanced themselves from her after learning the truth about our divorce. The experience taught me that sometimes the best revenge isn't immediate confrontation, but patient preparation. By staying silent and gathering evidence, I was able to protect my daughter's future and my own financial security. My ex-wife's plan to blindside me with divorce papers backfired spectacularly when she discovered I'd been 10 steps ahead of her for months. I don't regret the approach I took. Those 6 months of silent investigation were painful, but they ensured that justice was served and that my daughter's best interests were protected. Sometimes the most devastating response to betrayal isn't anger or confrontation, but cold, methodical preparation for the inevitable. The woman who thought she was cleverly planning her escape found herself trapped by her own deception, facing consequences she never anticipated because she underestimated the man she'd chosen to betray.